Okay, well, welcome. Good morning. Welcome back to our. I think you've been to this one. Yeah, we've had you here once before. I think a while back, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe not.
I have, Sean. Thank you so much for asking me back. I was surprised and delighted and honored. Thank you so much. Excuse my state of undress and sunburned appearance. We've got a monstrous heat wave here at the moment.
Where are you? Where are you located at, Phil?
We're in the north of England,
Oh,
which
heat wave in the north of England. Okay.
it's really unusual, but it's like over 30 degrees and it's absolutely roasting. So I'm sitting here trying to catch a
Okay.
breeze from the open window.
Yeah, I imagine air conditioners are not common in the north of England. I would
No,
imagine.
no, not at all. Unheard of.
Yeah, I'm actually in a similar. I'm not sure latitude wise. I'm in Washington State, which is about 1,000 miles north or 1,600 kilometers north of where I used to live, and so actually it's more than it's 1,200 miles. So probably I don't know what is that 1,800 k north of where I was before. So the weather's definitely different for me as well. So. Well, tell me what's going on. What's the latest things with you? Let's get an update from you. I know the last I talked to you, you were still just kind of doing diet and lifestyle stuff and getting your music back and fixing your knees. And so tell us a little bit about what's going on with Phil Escott these days.
Well, what a year, eh? What a year. Unbelievable. I don't know how much to delve into of that. I don't want to get too naughty on your channel and get it pulled like some of the stuff that we've had pulled, yeah, it's been crazy. The Human Unleashed guys who I'm involved with have done a red pill revolution book. Hi, Brett. Of that, yeah, we did this red pill revolution book, and it's been amazing doing that. To be honest, although there's a whole load of darkness and seriousness about this whole situation, I think I've not really had so much fun. We've had amazing times and brought out this book, and I was looking at the reviews, and it's like we faked them. I'm really honored. I can say that because I'm only a fifth of it, and these other guys are amazing. I think you've had Graham Norbury on and on the HBO podcast a while ago, so you know him at least. But yeah, it's been an extraordinary year. So I've been just consulting with people and seeing all sorts of beautiful reversals of things when they've been given a few simple steps of what to do. It's amazing how simple it is, eh? And yeah, it's been very, very rewarding time, to be honest. I mean, a bit barking mad, but very rewarding, yeah.
Yeah, it's I think more than ever we're going to need people that can fix people, because I think we were creating a lot of broken people, not just from the general environment, but this whole global pandemic and the stress and the divisiveness and the animosity, and I think it's done no one's mental health any good. And so we're going to need people that are able to help restore people to some degree of normality or sanity, I think. So you had that, you had a Facebook group, I think it was called like Carnivore and Beyond or something along that. I can't remember the name of it. Is that still active and going? Has that been shut down, or what's the deal with that?
No, we've got a few warnings recently. We've had a few things taken down. I've been delighted with the carnivore community. I mean, there are several communities I'm kind of involved with, which are the carnivore community, the music business, and the sort of spiritual community. My sort of woo-woo side. And I've been really surprised at some of the people who have swallowed this narrative and some who haven't. And it's never the ones you quite expect. And, in the whole spiritual community, there's huge divides about it, which I wouldn't have thought. In the music business too, you've got crazy things like, what's his name? The boss, Bruce Springsteen, saying that everybody has to be jabbed to go into his gigs and all that sort of thing, and even division about which ones are allowed in. And what I've noticed in the carnivore community, I don't know if it's because the brains are working well and they have some kind of discrimination due to a good amount of saturated fats in their diet, but there's been very little argument about it. People have seen through it and whatever. And it's just no arguments. I mean, you know, and the carnivores online seem to be up for it. I mean, I've loved your vids. They're so down to earth and really hilarious. You know, you're speaking out about this crazy stuff without getting too upset by it. And I think it seems to be a hallmark of the carnivore community. Maybe another benefit of getting this correct nutrition into our bodies.
Well, I mean, I certainly think that, you know, the brain is part of our body and what we feed our body. You know, if we look at, you know, trying to not be overweight or, you know, you're going to feed yourself appropriately. And the brain is part of that nutrition, the brain function is. And I think we do have, unfortunately, a lot of people whose brain just doesn't work right because they're not feeding it right. And, you know, you see the results of that, I think. And, you know, the people walking around with anxiety or depression or aggression or, you know, these hair trigger tempers and that type of stuff. So are you still going, because I know you were trying to put on that thing in Spain, which I was looking forward to going to. And then obviously international travel got basically shut down, and depending on what the countries are like. Is that still something you participate in, or is that something that's going to ever happen, you think?
Yeah, we'd love to. We had to cancel it 2 years in a row. And, you know, it was kind of awkward and all the logistics of getting people money back and stuff. It was a real shame because our 2019 one was just marvelous and the venue is beautiful. So we hope to be doing it again in the future. And we had some planned in the US as well that was sort of budding in the planning stages. And of course we had to cancel those too. It's, you know, it's messed everybody about. It's horrific, but, yeah, it's a funny old thing. At least music's starting again here. And because I wrote that book and I got invited to this party in Manchester near me a little while ago. And there was a guy there called Darren Nesbitt who runs the Light paper in the UK. And I didn't know he was a musician. He started singing some songs on acoustic and whatever. And one of them is that chant that seems to have gone around the world about you can shove the new world order up your ass, whatever, that everybody's singing. And so I said, let's form a band and go around all these sort of freedom rallies and whatever. And what surprises me is because I've spent the last little while around these sort of gigs and rallies associating with an awful lot of vegans. And, you know, they have workshops before it all and start up with this vegan propaganda at the end. And it's surprised me how many of those have seen through an awful lot of this. And yet they won't let go of this whole thing, even if you point out, you know, the fact that the powers that be who are pushing all the things that they're railing against are pushing all these horrendous plant-based diets and whatever. And I remember sitting there playing drums among a load of T-shirts on the wall just saying, eat fruit, not meat. There's been some funny times here, I tell you, among these musicians. But yeah, at least things are starting up again. But for how long? I don't know. I mean, we can't plan one of those carnivore things really, because you never know when these people are going to go by the be nice to them, then be nasty to them, torture handbook and pull the plug on everything again. So we're just going to wait until maybe these white hats have won or whatever's going on to be able to do that, so that we're secure in it, because cancelling one is a lot more hassle than putting one on quite often. It's a shame.
Yeah, that is tough. I feel for the event organizers, and, you know, because I know that a lot of people have gotten. There's been some events that I think it was Keto Con, I got canceled, and they're having trouble getting refunds back, and they basically just were, you know, castigated by you know, the main group of people that, you know, they were just demonized for that. What you know, and that interesting to see that we have you know, we've got these extreme crazy carnivore people that do run a nutritional stream, and then on the polar opposite you've got the vegans. But the commonality is, you know, both of them are suspicious about mainstream nutritional advice and health advice, and so you have this kind of a weird little dichotomy of, you know, confluence of beliefs, even though we're on the exact same. I don't want to say we're an opposite team. I mean, you know, really, I mean, like I'll point to guys like Joel Kahn, who I've had my back and forths with over the years. I usually do it in a fun way, and actually, I don't think I actually enjoy interacting with him, kind of, to be honest. And there's some that are just downright nasty, but, you know, I think we're all saying, look, this processed food dependency on drugs is a problem. You know, we need to figure out what to do to get out, to get off pills, get off junk food. And, you know, to me, that's great. You know, I disagree that eating nothing but weeds and beans is going to get you the best option for health. I mean, and again, just so people don't know, I mean, you had an experience in both. I mean, you did the vegan thing for what, many years, and the health results were not what you wanted, I assume. Is that fair to say, Phil?
Yes, well, I was sort of, I'd say, plant-based for about 30 odd years, really, and then when I got really sick and got that rheumatoid arthritis, it was I went down the obvious path that people do of saying, right, I've got to go even more plant-based, and all that left me was emaciated with kidney stones. So that was really my my vegan excursion. And it's a funny thing because it's been 6 years now that I've eaten nothing but meat, and I say to the vegans, honestly, how long is it going to take that if anything you said were true, I would be dead by now. You know, I would have been dead in the first 6 months or something. And they can't seem to grasp that you know, if you fed a gorilla nothing but steaks, it wouldn't last very long. But humans seem to thrive beautifully. And another thing I've noticed on the carnivore group is that anybody who has this thing that's happening, whether it's to do with a virus or whatever it's to do with, they seem to get it extremely mildly or not at all. I've not seen anybody particularly sick on the carnivore groups. Have you?
You know, I've seen a few people that have gotten, reportedly gotten COVID. I've not heard anybody that's been sort of long-term injured from that. I know a few physicians that were exposed to it, and they said they had symptoms for about a week, and then it kind of improved. So, but I mean, again, the carnivore community is infinitesimally small still. I mean, we're only looking at maybe a couple 100,000 people worldwide, so it's a tiny portion. So we're not going to see success. But yeah, I mean, I think most people, as we know, 95% of the people that have been hospitalized or died have had multiple medical comorbidities, and so when you're falling out of that group by improving your health, you dramatically improve your just improve the likelihood that you're not going to get sick or you're not going to have a significant outcome. I mean, I don't know, I mean, I very well, I mean, maybe I had it, I don't know. I mean, it could have been, I had sneezed one time in the last year. Maybe that was the only manifestation I had of it. Who knows? It could be, but yeah, that's true. Oh, this is a thing. So, we talked about, the fact that we're not dying, and by gosh, some of us are getting pretty darn healthy. And it certainly goes against the narrative, or certainly the narrative of these vegan proselytizers that say that meat is the root of all evil. And if only you give up meat, the whole world would be better. And yet here we are, surviving, and in many cases thriving. So it goes against their narrative. And so now what they're trying to do is silence us, with quote unquote misinformation. I see this Dr. Danielle Belardo, who's a vegan cardiologist. She's 1 year out of her training, and now she knows everything. And there's another, I see these different physicians that are plant-based saying, we want to, just like with the COVID-19, they want to shut down everything that doesn't go with the narrative as misinformation. They're trying to now do that to nutrition people. And so I was just, I don't know if some of you guys know, my Twitter account was just nuked yesterday. So I went from 81,000 followers to 0. I think hopefully maybe I'll get that back. I don't know, but I mean, it's part of this, is it the misinformation, anything you say, I'm in here providing studies that don't, I mean, there are peer-reviewed studies. I'll say this is a study that shows that a ketogenic diet is okay. Here's a study that shows meat isn't bad for it. There's study after study after study. And somehow that is mislabeled as misinformation, I believe. And that's, so yeah, Alice was asking the reason. So they're saying that I have a DMCA violation, digital music copyright, something violation. And what they do, they said, you had a tweet that had music in the background, which was copyrighted. So we're going to suspend your account for that.
Hey, Sean, I fell foul of one of those on my YouTube channel once. The guy who was doing my YouTube channel thought it would be quite amusing to put some of Moby's free music up there as a theme tune on my Sorry, I've got a theme tune going on here. The ice cream van's going past outside. Can you hear it go? There it goes. Yeah, I got a. So they pulled it down. Well, no, they gave me a strike against it or something for breach of copyright. Or they complained because, you know, Moby's a vegan, and I thought it was quite amusing to have some of his free music on my carnivore videos, but they kind of found me in the end and had a bit of a go at me. But yeah, they're pulling that stuff down for sure. I've not lost a channel yet, which is lucky, but.
Yeah, I mean, and, you know, and the content was down. I mean, they pulled it off. It was the remedy was already there, but they're going back and looking back. This is from like 2 years ago. And so there was like, okay, 2 years ago, you had a video that showed you exercising with music in the background, which is copyrighted. And so honestly, I think it's selective targeting. I mean, I think selective enforcement of, you know, well, we're not going to get this. We can't get him down for hate speech because he's not really engaging that. Maybe the information he's showing is peer reviewed, but we don't like it. So we're going to go after this stuff. I think it's the equivalent of like finding somebody that's jaywalking, you know, arresting somebody you don't like for jaywalking. It's like everybody cuts across the street, and then you're going to selectively target. You know, I mean, I think it's one of those types of things that's going on, but we'll see. I'll see if I can get that back up. But regardless, we'll keep sharing the message. It's why one of these reasons these community, like I said, we're not. Like the thing about MeetRx, we build our own platform. There's no Facebook or, you know, whatever, TikTok or whatever, people controlling this. Now, I guess you could say that the web hosting sites could eventually take it down, and, you know, you get to where, do you need your own phone? And I know there's people that are building their own phones now to do this, but it really is. I think this is a thing, and there was you know, as most of us are probably aware, in the U.S. press, in the U.S. Facebook and some other social media, I think primarily Facebook, maybe some other ones have sort of, I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I know there's an agency that is identified 12 people as the dirty disinformation dozen or something like that. They've got Joseph Mercola and, you know, another 10 or 11, Rob Kennedy Jr. as these vaccine disinformation people. And they want to do is just shut them off all social media. And there's people that certainly people say, and a lot of the stuff they say, I disagree with. I think some of it's bullshit. I think some of it's quackery. But at the same time, you know, I don't think you should censor people. I just think, you know, you should say, okay, provide a counter argument. You know, let grown adults make that decision rather than just, you know, shutting these people down. Because where you start there, then they're going to go. The next thing will be, well, you know, you guys are saying, you know, high cholesterol is not the end of the world, or, you know, there may be nuance to this. Well, that's disinformation. We're going to shut you down. And then they're going to go after people that you know, don't agree with certain political philosophies and shut those down. And then it's going to be, you know, meat. Oh, you're promoting eating meat. We're going to shut you down. It never stops. And so I think even if you disagree and think Joe Mercola is a quack and shouldn't, and what he says is BS, you know, we shouldn't shut these people down. I don't know what
exactly. I mean,
maybe that's my privilege for being an American, and I'm used to sort of being able to say what you want, or at least have the illusion.
No, man, no. I always say you look through history, and any time that anybody's been book burning or censoring people, just find a time when they were the good guys. You can't find one, you know. So what's going on now? It's a bit strange. And talking about Mercola, it's kind of funny actually, because his girlfriend once put up a whole post about me and how dangerous I was killing people with my carnivore diet advice. And I'm wondering, she never put up a retraction or anything. I wonder how she feels now that that Mercola's talking to Paul Saladino and experimenting with it himself and preaching it. I'd kind of be interested in that. And talking about you're talking about disinformation. Did you see early on in the, well, probably still, but in the early part of this fiasco, early last year, the WHO were putting out advice to not eat animal fats and to eat seed oils and grains to ward off COVID. And I thought this is really extraordinary. I mean, the stuff that we found out about, I mean, so many in the keto and carnivore community are finding out now that seed oils might be a greater Satan than grains. But we found an interesting thing a little while ago where we've been chatting with Laszlo Boros, you know, the deuterium researcher, and he came onto our membership site at Human Unleashed, and he was quite excited that morning. And I think what had happened was something he was trying to prove for years, that and it had been just confirmed with independent research, that when deuterium, if anybody doesn't know, it's like a little extra molecule or extra whatever on hydrogen atom that creates heavy water, D2O, and you know, a lot of research is showing this this can cause all sorts of disruption in the cells and cancer, all sorts. And animal fats is what causes the cells to create its own deuterium depleted water, which is why it's such a great way to eat on that level. Anyway, and Laszlo had been trying to prove this for ages, and it had come to light that when deuterium comes in via, you know, the natural sources of fruit and whatever, the body can deplete it as long as you're not piling it in all year round and when the sun isn't there to deplete it. But if it comes in by seed oils, the cells can't get rid of it. And it's probably, you know, so this is stuck in there until there's some kind of, you know, apoptosis or autophagy or whatever, which obviously the carb eaters on the WHO diet never get into with their constant eating all day long. And it just adds up to what are they trying to do to us? Because that's probably some of the worst disinformation I've seen all year, particularly if you take Laszlo's research into account, that these things are utterly deadly. Did you see that when they were trying to push that kind of thing, Shawn?
I don't remember specifically. I know other people have talked about it, and we've seen Harvard University with Walter Willett pushing whole grains and seed oils forever. I mean, this has been something that's come out of Harvard, and Eat Lancet, who he largely has a big say in, that's been their talking points forever. As we know, Harvard has a history of being corporatized. I mean, the sugar industry paid Fred Astaire, who used to chair their nutrition department, paid off to basically exonerate sugar and demonize fat. And so we've got this history of this stuff. And so I think, unfortunately, academia has been compromised, and there's this whole science is pure and above influence it's just not the case. And it's not that there aren't good scientists and people trying to do a good job, but you have this incredibly powerful influence of stuff that's that's impacting them. So I mean, I think what we find is a lot of the studies that get funded, if you do a study that is favorable to a corporate's interest, then guess who's going to fund your next study? You're going to keep getting the funding. And so it's the easiest route is to design studies that are just by their design are going to come out favorable for someone that's going to make a lot of money off that. So it's I wrote in my book, there was I'm sure I forget her name now, Angela something, who was the editor-in-chief of the New England Journal of Medicine, and she actually she just England, I think was her name, maybe Marsha Anglo or something like that. Maybe I had the name wrong, but she basically had to step down and resign as editor-in-chief of the New England Journal of Medicine, which is considered one of the most storied journals, like the Lancet or something like that, of time. And she said it's too compromised. There's too much pharmaceutical money. It's basically all the research. After doing this for a decade, I've reached the conclusion this is compromised. I can't be part of that anymore, which is sad. I mean, this is what we do as physicians and other scientists, is we would depend on these things to inform us. And when that, when the very basis of what you believe is based on someone's financial, profit and loss sheet, it's tough. It really is.
It is, and you get people attacking you. I'm sure you have. Oh, you're just in it for the money. You've written a book or whatever, and there's no real money in books. And I've written them, and when you look at the amount of money that's going through the pharma companies, and people are trusting them still. I mean, extraordinary things are going on with this science at the moment. And there was something quite telling the other day, I think, when people started attacking Fauci for his misdemeanors. And he was saying to attack Anthony Fauci is to attack science. And I thought that must be one of the most unscientific things anybody's said. And with all this going on, you'd have thought he'd have kind of buried his head for a bit. But then he came out a couple of days ago and said that every child who isn't double jabbed above 2 years old needs to wear a mask. What on earth is going on? It's quite amazing. And about a year ago or more, they had this thing in England, where everybody was clapping for the NHS on the doorstep, and it was stay home, stay safe. What is it? Protect the NHS, save lives, something like that. And I just, it was so obvious that the real pandemics were the comorbidities. And I made this video of, eat fatty meat, get plenty of sun, protect the NHS, save lives. And to using these sort of examples of people who had been totally destroyed in hospital, people sitting there on diabetes wards and being fed pizza and jam and cake and whatever. We have a young doc who is a carnivore, who we also interviewed on our YouTube channel, and he's just phenomenal, really. I mean, he's so up against the medical system and what he sees in there, and he gets in terrible arguments with his colleagues about what's going on these diabetes wards and whatever. And it's the same with my partner as well, who's a nurse on the so-called front line. And I don't want to take it into too many political things, but the things that she's seen, particularly over the past year, are very shocking. I think it might even be a time of real awakening. I'm very optimistic. My hopes are up, and I think with what's going on now, without going into too many details, we've just done, if anybody's interested, we've just done an amazing episode on Human Unleashed of our COVID chats. We've been doing them for the past year or more, and there's one up that I just put up just before this interview, and go to put my name in YouTube. You'll find a little advert for it where we're deliberately not mentioning all the things we're not supposed to mention because it's not on YouTube. We put it somewhere else. But we are optimistic that it might even completely revolutionize the whole medical system, because the amount of people I'm seeing waking up with what's happening at the moment and losing trust in doctors. I mean, there are some amazing things out there. People say you're completely against all medical system. Not at all. I mean, if you have something acute, if you need an operation, surgeons, just wonderful. You can't fix yourself with a bread knife or whatever when you've come off your motorbike and you've got a bone sticking through your leg. This is wonderful. But with the chronic disease and just how the safest thing to do is to just run in the opposite direction. And I think people are starting to realize this, and there's a lot of trust being lost. And I think it's going to be terrible in the short term. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to suffer greatly, who are sort of very damaged by these medications and whatever already, and don't know how to eat and don't know about lifestyle. But I'm convinced that in the long term, I think we'll see a huge revolution in the medical system. I really hope so. Anyway, we're seeing signs of it.
Yeah, there's, clearly, as a physician, I mean, I spent, most of my life, adult life, in the medical system, and I still have a lot of empathy for people that are in that system. I think, I'll continue to argue this. I think most doctors are good people trying to do a good job, and they want to help their patients. It's just the system is just designed with different motives in mind. I mean, it's become the administrative wing of medicine has, went up logarithmically. There's 10 times as many administrators as there were in the 1980s, and the number of healthcare providers has steadily basically stayed the same. And so what we see is it's just become a big business, and the patient outcomes, while still important, are not the primary concern. The primary concern is profit and paying the bills and paying the CEO's salaries and the board of directors, want to make sure they get the return on their investments and all these things, which are unfortunate. And I do think, what we're going to see, and I do think this pandemic, for good or bad, has definitely undermined a lot of people's belief or trust in the medical care system. And I think it was unnecessarily. I mean, you could, one of the things that frustrates me is, not whether vaccine good, vaccine bad, take it or not, I don't really care. But I mean, the way they present it is like they start saying that you can't have herd immunity without a vaccine, whereas the traditional definitions, everything I learned in medical school, everything pre-2020 was herd immunity. When a population has enough exposure to whatever, they have herd immunity. The World Health Organization literally went on their website and changed definitions. They're going on and saying that, well, if you have the infection, there's no guarantee you're going to have any immunity to that. And we know that's not true. I mean, it may not happen for 100% of the people, but by and large, that's how humans have done this forever and ever and ever. So we start changing, our knowledge based on the current desire to, push it to different narratives. So people are getting frustrated with that. And so some of them will seek out alternatives. And it may be a carnivore diet, maybe your group, it may be a vegan group, it may be some other thing, maybe Joseph Mercola or whatever, alternative types things. And I think ultimately, some of those things are going to be bad. Some of those things are not going to work. Some of them, I've honestly seen people that are at they're drinking urine and they're doing stupid ass shit, which I think is just ridiculous. There is some of it's going to be good. There's some of it's going to work, and the cream will rise to the top. And I hope, and my belief is what I'm doing and what this community is doing is something that is positively impacting people in a way that maybe the healthcare system falls down on. And if that's true, and we can prove it, that's where people are going to go. People are going to go where they get results. I mean, that's market economics, unless, of course, and this is a possibility, and this is the dystopian part where they clamp down on everything. It says, no, you're not allowed to. We recently learned, I guess, our text messages are now being monitored for misinformation. If you send a text talking about don't get the vaccine, whatever, they can delete those texts or something. I don't know what they do, but that's supposedly going on. So unfortunately, we live in a world where we're so plugged into the technology. Our refrigerators are spying on us or whatever. Our doorbells are watching what we can do. You've never been so monitored like you are now, and so it's very easy to, control that. Basically, a cell phone is basically it's literally a brainwashing tool. Depending on how it's being used, and we're seeing the effects of that. Everything's being directed. That's a reality. Now, you don't have to participate in that. So, you can realize that and say, hey, I'm not going to look at it. But you see you've got little 6 and 7-year-old kids just constantly staring at screens, watching TikTok videos. What's happening to those guys? These little kids, and what's going to be the next generation? It's, what are they going to come out as? We've got these people that, literally, they're going to be unplugged from reality. They're going to prefer the virtual reality because it's more exciting. Honestly, I'd rather watch a movie. I'm going to get excited playing a video game, but it's going to be, leveled up 100 times where they don't really care about the here and now. I remember hearing about a Korean couple a couple of years ago. A young couple had a newborn baby. They got into some video game, and literally their own child sat there and starved to death because they were unable to disengage themselves from playing a video game while their own child literally died in the room with them. It's just insanity, but that's where we're at to some degree.
It is mad. This is what we're trying to cover in the book. Really, it's not. We don't go down deep dark holes. We don't get really too extreme with it. We're trying to show how this has come about. All of this stuff has come about over the centuries and from all sorts of different angles. Like we've had our own little entrances into waking up about what's going on here. And mine was through diet and health, and then Graham's was through banking. And he was in the city of London and very well paid in the banking system, and then realized, one day, hang on, money doesn't even exist, and went into the health system really and started studying all that with all the Jack Kruse stuff as he spoke about on the podcast with you. But and then Dr. Jeremy Ayres, who has been doing this alternative stuff for 30 odd years with extraordinary results, and then Ben Hunt, who actually put the words together from all Zoom meetings that we did, wonderful writer. And with him through all the regenerative farming and all sorts of stuff like that. So we come into it from all sorts of angles. And when you put the big picture together, you can see how all this links together with all the money and the corporations. And it's a fascinating area. So we did that to show how to sort of disengage from that system without sort of fighting against it or being horrific to anybody, but just sort of like Tom Bombadil in The Lord of the Rings, really, you know, put the ring on, don't disappear, not be bothered about it, don't want to possess it, and just kind of disassociate from it. And it's difficult with the kids, you know, like my kids at the moment, because my missus is out shopping, and they're plugged into the electronic nanny at the moment. But as soon as we can, we get them off and push them out in the sun and get them doing other stuff. But it's very difficult because it's enormously addictive. But hopefully they're doing well. Like young Peter here is, he was weaned straight from breast milk onto meat, and all he eats is meat, the occasional little bit of fruit, and the odd chocolate binge, you know. But he's something interesting really about him, Sean. It's his body composition is extraordinary. When he goes to play with other kids, you know, and you're mucking about with kids and whatever, you pick up one of the kids and they weigh nothing. They're sort of all full of pizza and Cocoa Pops and whatever. And then you see other parents sort of go to pick Peter up. It's like, oh, and he's got no fat on him, but he's just absolutely solid with muscle and bone density, I guess. But the little guy is like lead, you know. It's amazing. I've never seen, because my other kids have also always had a period of time when my first kid is 31. And they've had periods of feeding them a lot of plant matter, and things have gone horribly wrong, to be honest. But with Peter, it's quite amazing how extraordinarily robust he is. And if anything goes round at school, you know, I walk in the morning past the parents, and they're all chatting. Oh yes, well of course he's got another ear infection, and we're having grommets put in, and then we took him to the doc for this and that, and then something comes up and they're off for a week or two. And Peter, nothing ever happens. You might sort of get a sniffle for an hour in the evening. You think maybe he'll be off tomorrow, and he's just not. You know, it's amazing to watch him grow up. And I mean, I'm 60 next year, and I have a 6-year-old here, and my missus, I mean, she's 10 years younger than me, but still we're counted as sort of old parents, and we're supposed to have these rickety kids, right, with something wrong with them all the time. But he's this little superhuman. It's amazing what you can do with feeding them the right stuff straight off the breast milk.
Yeah, I think yeah, that's one thing that's really just disturbing to see the diet of children, and you know, we see what happens to them. I mean, I spent the summer at Laguna Beach, and I walk on the beach every single day, and I mean, very often there'd be kids there, and very often those kids would be, I mean, 7, 8, 9 years old, and already you could tell they're on their way to morbid obesity, which is just, I mean, it's just disheartening. You want to go to the parents and just stop feeding your kids this garbage, because you know clearly that's what's going on. But it's one of those things that, my goodness, it is just it's really distressing to see. And it's not, you know, you look at the physical side, but I mean, it's just as much the mental side. I mean, many of those kids will suffer from anxiety, depression. You know, it used to be, you know, it may be, you know, you used to, and this is sad too. I mean, you know, overweight kids, fat kids would get picked on, right? You get picked on as a fat kid. Well, these days you're going to be in the majority, you know. So maybe the normal weight kid will be the one that's getting picked on or something like that. I don't know if it's going to. That would be interesting to see that. But
it would. Well, I'm having constant battles with my daughter's school. Now, I moved up here to where I live now. Because of the transcendental meditation movement, you know, in 1986, and I was really into that. Now I'm not. I don't really have anything to do with them, and all my friends in that community down the road are just dying from their trying to eat these kind of Indian diets in the north of England, and it's not working. There's enormous amounts of cancer and whatever, even more than in the local community that eats a regular diet. And the school, I sent her to that one because when she went into secondary school, the primary school is great, where my son still is, but my daughter, who is 12, went into this school, and I'm having terrible battles with them because the primary school, great. The headmaster's a good friend, and he's taken a load of advice. And he said, I thought you were a bit mad to start with, because I tend to send these emails through, you know, when there's some on my Facebook page, but I make them public now and again if they're particularly ridiculous. But I try and see the ridiculous side of things and take the piss a lot, but also some to soften up the message, really. but we became good friends with the headmaster of that school. But this one, I'm honestly thinking of taking her out and homeschooling her, because I should have done it a long time ago, probably. But this school, they're pushing veganism, they're pushing the whole sort of cows and climate change thing. They're trying to get them wearing masks all the time, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous in general, to be honest. But I think it's I've never worn one for a second. But I think it's particularly ridiculous for children. But it was funny because she probably knows more about diet than any of the teachers there. And they were going on about what we have here called the Eat Well plate one day and teaching people a healthy diet. And you know, this Eat Well plate, it contains all the grains and all that kind of thing. But which is sort of excusable, I guess, if they don't know. But it's even got a section for sweets on it, you know, and chocolates and stuff. And where is this in a healthy diet? It's, you know, eat it if you have to. We don't put it on the diet advice. Very strange. And so she was saying, so what should the main part of your plate be? And my daughter put her hand up and said, well, it should be meat and fat. And this obese teacher sort of shouted her down and said, no, that's absolutely wrong. I thought he really should have stood up for it more and explained, because she could do, you know, my son would. He's not so timid as her, but it was really telling that there's somebody out front looking like that and teaching these kids this nonsense. And so I'll send emails through about it. And eventually they said, I mean, my email's never rude, but they point out this lunacy, and they are actually quite amusing. I do craft them to be crazy. And eventually I got this message through saying your emails will no longer be passed through to the headmistress. I'm like, hang on, I'm paying your wages here. My daughter goes to the school and I'm not allowed an opinion. She's saying, I don't have time to read your emails. I think, well, I send one back for one every 20 that you send me. And you're sending me these constant emails about how we're having vegan pizza today and how we're going to have some class on veganism or something, you know, and all this stuff's coming through. And I say, I'll read all your garbage. That's very strange. The school system, I worry what they're being taught there, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I see there's so many people talking about, it's kind of funny on both sides. So there's people who are saying, I'm not going to send my school to school, I'm going to homeschool them because, they want to force them to have a vaccine and they want to force them to wear a mask. And then there's other people that are saying they live in the United States in a red state where they're outlawing mask mandates. And so therefore I'm not going to send my kids to school because they're not being asked to wear masks. And so I think the school system everybody is frustrated with it. I mean, depending what your perspective is. And so we have, it's just like society in general is being undermined completely. Now, some people would say that's a good thing. We've already reached a tipping point, and some people say that school is not doing what it's supposed to do. It's and I mean, as a parent, you want your kid to learn, skills that will help them, academic skills, I suppose. And then some people would say the ethics and that thing should be left to the parents. Some parents are better at it than others. Or some, obviously there's some people that probably have no business being parents. I mean, you see that. We attempted to adopt a child last year, and we're probably not going to do it just because it's taking too long. We're getting too damn old, quite honestly. But I mean, the amount of hoop jumping to do an adoption was enormous. I mean, the background information and all the health records and everything, and then making sure your home is perfectly, inspecting your home to do that, to have a child. But naturally, you can have a child, and you can be an IV drug abuser, and you can have a child, and it's fine. But anyway, that's something that is obviously unrelated. But
no, I don't.
So yeah, what else?
I don't think it's unrelated. I think it's really important.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to ramble sometimes. I get off on this stuff, and I like I said, I have my so far my son's school has been fairly reasonable. I mean, I don't know how many schools, because what often happens is you read the headline, and this is a natural thing. People want to put up the most egregious example, and then everybody's like, it fires people up. It's like if it bleeds, it leads. I mean, that's a news thing. show something that's going to piss off the most people or make the most people cry or make people the most, whatever, laugh the most. I mean, this is the stuff. And then in reality, it's usually, the reality is often not what's portrayed in the media. I don't know though, but I mean, I know that some people, I know somebody whose daughter went to a school that was like that, but it tends to be relatively infrequent. I think, maybe not. I don't know. I haven't been to many schools recently.
Well, what you said about this division thing, I think this is the biggest problem here. It's funny. I've lost friends, on Facebook, people who I've known since the 80s, and it's a shame really, but the people who seem to be swallowing the mainstream part of it seem to be getting very aggressive with it, and I try to be just really chilled and just maybe go research for yourself, look at something else, because I just think that we need to bring down this narrative really, because it's getting dangerous now with the supply lines of the food and trying to go for the beef production. I mean, it's okay. Most people probably just think, oh, well, never mind. I'll just eat a bit of chicken, or I'll eat a bit of a beef, a veggie burger and some rice and whatever. They don't really care. But for somebody like me, it's something that I feel that we really need to protect, because if I don't eat meat, I don't know what happens. I don't know what happens if I go back to eating pizza or something. It's because it's still the memory of that, although I'm not in pain now, although I'll tell you an interesting story after this, but I'm not in any trouble now. But if I had to eat a Bill Gates diet, I think I would be very sick very quickly. And so we have to protect this. And I don't think it's a case of just going off and getting your own land and having a couple of cows. That's a very, very idyllic situation. But I mean, if all the food lines go down and you're the one with the cows, and I think it would be absolute chaos, and you're going to have to have a load of armed guards around those things. So I think we're going to have to make sure that it goes further than that, and that we stop this lunacy that's going on, because it's threatening everything that has seen all these beautiful reversals of disease in people. And that's I suppose my main worry at the moment, thinking that my kids would grow up and they might have the same genetics as me and be subject to the same sort of autoimmunity, which they're not showing the slightest sign of now because of what they eat and how they live. But at some stage it could be very possible. And the thought that my son and my daughter would have to go through anything that I went through and not even have a way out because they're forced into eating this crap, it's a pretty serious situation, really, I think. So that worries me. And that's why I keep on standing up against it. And even though you lose the odd friend, you gain a load of others. I mean, I'm amazed at the people that I've met and got to know this past year, just wonderful connections. And so that's great. But I wish there wasn't the division, because I've got somebody mentioned here in the chat that it shouldn't be the schools. It should be at the root cause of it. And absolutely. And I don't blame these people who shout me down, really. It's the people who fooled them into that. And these weird things that happen when, like the other week, I played a gig with some friends, and I will not wear one of those muzzles. I just won't. And I went into the gig, and I'm there on the stage, and the owner of the pub, who I know, he came up and he said, well, you can't walk through any of the pub like that. You've got to. I said, can I go to the toilet? He goes, no, you've got to wear a muzzle to go to the toilet. And I said, oh, look, come on. I didn't make too much of a thing of it, but I said, look, if this was a solo gig, I'd be out of here. It's not your fault. I'm not upset with you. It's just the people who have fooled you into thinking that this is necessary. And I had to stay on stage. I had to sit on a stool behind my drum set most of the night, so sort of sneaking off to the toilet when nobody was looking, because I was so dangerous to all the other to the other patrons. And it's a very weird situation. So it's got to be won. The war's got to be won at the root of this, really, to save our very food.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, the perceptions that people have, because if I look at the statistics in the United States, and I may be wrong, but something around 50% of the population has been vaccinated to some degree, right? Some of these 50% are not. If I go into a store where there's no mask mandate, it's almost no one has a mask on. There may be one or two, three people that have it. And those people have probably been vaccinated and they're still scared, and that's fine. Whatever they're scared for, you know, if they're scared about it, that's fine. And maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. But so clearly, the majority of people are either, they're just lying. They're not following the rules that are supposed to be out there because they think it's nonsense, you know. And I think it's, you know, again, I'm not going to go too much into that. I mean, as a surgeon who wore a mask every day of his career, I know what masks do and what they don't do and what their purpose is. And I went through that. And, you know, you look through the literature. I used to get people saying, well, would you ever go to a surgeon who doesn't wear a mask? I said, well, actually, the data on surgical masks and infections in the OR is pretty equivocal. There's no real benefit for that. I mean, there's actually been studies, if you look at it, there's studies that are showing that. The main thing it does is it protects you as a surgeon from getting blood shot up your nose and in your mouth. And I've seen that happen, or goggles for your eyes, because I'm in there hammering on a, you know, on somebody's bloody open knee, and you're hammering out with saws and chisels. And guess what? When you hit something that's wet, stuff splashes back in you. So you don't want blood getting in your mucous membranes. And that's really the primary reason, you know, surgeons often do that, because, you know, you cut into a big pus pocket and pus will shooting out up in the air. You just don't want that stuff up your nose or in your mouth. I mean, you know, so it's just, anyway.
Did you see there was a virologist recently made a video, and I thought it was spot on, because he's saying, well, okay, so they say that these masks stop the droplets, but larger droplets will just fall to the floor. The main problem, if you think this is transmitted sort of, you know, by viruses pathogenically, that it aerosolizes it. So he put 5 masks on, sealed it around his mouth, and then got his glasses and sort of breathed through that and steamed up his glasses. And he's saying, you're telling me this isn't aerosolizing it perfectly. And that was one of the best demonstrations. I mean, the smoke one where you breathe out and it all comes out the side of the mask, that's not so convincing. But this one of just aerosolizing it even more so it travels further was a very interesting demo, I think. I don't get in arguments about it. I've never worn one in a shop, even when they're mandatory. I walk in and I'm polite to them, and I often use the magic rock trick. You know that one? I think a lot of people might have seen that, where you have a little rock in your pocket or something, and they say, where's your mask? And you say, it's okay, I've got my magic rock. And they say, but what good does that do? And you go, exactly the same as your muzzle. Absolutely fuck all. I think this one is always quite amusing for getting past store detectives and whatever who get a little bit Gestapo on you. They tend to laugh, you know, just let you through. But I just walk through with sort of confidence. And it's funny, I did get attacked once. It was a really sad one, actually, because I was standing in a queue waiting to get a parcel sent somewhere. And they said, oh, you can't come in without a mask on. And then this lady started really screaming at me in the queue and saying, my daughter's got a heart condition and you're putting her at risk. And this poor little girl of about 6 or so was standing there with an armful of Coca-Cola and sweets and chips and whatever. And I thought, I'm the, you know, I didn't say anything. Obviously, you don't want to get into that kind of thing, obviously, in public. But I just looked and I thought, wow, I really don't think I'm the problem here. It's very strange. And another time I got shouted at by somebody who was really, really overweight in a mobility scooter, that I was putting their health at risk. And, you know, the food that they had in that basket, you just wanted to give them a hug and just say, look, listen, man, just let me tell you what's going on here. But you know, you got to bite your tongue. But I won't have it. I won't get aggressive about it. I never do. But I just seem to get away with it. Just turn it into a joke. Or, you know, if somebody says, you know, why aren't you wearing a mask? Don't you think it's time we all stop believing in Father Christmas here? You know? And it tends to get me past the store detectives. But there's nobody out with machine guns in England yet anyway, so that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, the thing is that we've got this, and unfortunately I have to go in a few minutes or Phil, but I mean, I think the one thing is, you know, if this situation did not expose like you said, the pandemic of chronic disease and making us realize we have to do something about it, I don't think anything will. And I think, you know, the thing is, you know, I mean, to expect the healthcare authorities, the government, whatever, health agencies to do anything about it, you would think they would want to do something about it. So clearly they do not, based on this response. You know, I point out the fact that we spent I think someone said we spent something like $6 trillion on vaccine related stuff in the United States. And I don't know the stats, but somebody said something like to combat world hunger would cost something like $11 billion or something. I can't remember. It was one of those things where the amount of money we spent on vaccines could basically rid the world of world hunger for 545 years. You know, I mean, again, I can't verify the veracity of those claims, but I mean, what I'm seeing is, you know, the amount of effort and time and messaging and information we spent on social distancing, masking, and getting vaccines. If you were to spend even 10% of that on stop eating ultra processed junk food, get outside, get some exercise, do some push-ups. I mean, you know, that would go a long way, and probably much more ways to limiting the effect of this and many other health crises and pandemics. This one,
totally. All these things would be, yeah, it would be absolutely nothing. You know, these little things, these little sniffles and whatever. It's very strange to me to see it. I occasionally, very occasionally, switch on the mainstream media, and either you're shouting at it or you're crying with laughter. There's just it's like some kind of comedy show, really, of the things that they're telling you to do. They do occasionally go on about, you know, and then it's always just eat more fruit and veg, isn't it? That's all they've got, really. That's all they say, because they don't want to be stepping on the proven evil of the burping and farting cows. It's so strange, man. It's so strange. But I see that all the viewing figures for these things are dropping off hugely. The alternative channels are coming up. There's some great info out there everywhere except the mainstream, and I think people are cottoning onto this. And you know, it might be getting thrown off YouTube and thrown off all the other main platforms, but I think the confidence in it is waning. I'm seeing so many people waking up to so much of this over the last year. I think it's a really encouraging time. It's just very painful. It's just, you know, any sort of turnaround and any sort of healing thing, whether it's for the body or for the community, always goes through a painful time. And I think that's what we're in. But I am really, really optimistic, to be honest. I think that most of the sign, I have my odd wobble. I have my odd wobble where I think, oh my God, what's happening? What are my kids going to do in this new world? But I think we're okay. I think we're going to be cool.
Well, I mean, I think what we'll see is we've got some elections coming up in different places, parts of the world. I mean, Canada, I mean, a lot of people are frustrated with Justin Trudeau. In the US, a lot of people are frustrated with some of the stuff. We'll see if anything actually happens with that, because I think that'll be a big sign. Anyway, Phil, let people know where they can go to find you, to find out more about your groups and your maybe books and stuff like that. Thank you again for being here.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, man. And I hope we can meet in person sometime. I hope we can set up some of these conferences. That would be great. Well, where to find me? Thank you very much. And my website is pureactivity.net. But my main project now is with the Human Unleashed guys, which is just thehumanunleashed.com. And we have our COVID chats on there that are all free. The one we did yesterday is quite cool. And we have all sorts of membership options and whatever, and health info, and hundreds of hours of video there with us discussing all sorts of things. And we also have, if you get on the mailing list now, this hopefully isn't of any use to anybody here, but if anybody is suffering from any of the problems, you know, associated with the arm rape that anybody might have had, Dr. Jeremy Ayres and Graham and a few others putting together this package, a protocol that might well help mitigate the effects of that, and that might be useful for people. So get onto the mailing list, and the Red Pill Revolution book at theredpillrevolution.com. We've got lots more books planned. We've got the Red Pill Food Revolution coming up next. We've got education, money, all kinds of aspects of this. And I'm really excited about that. It's great to be doing the books with these guys. So check out the reviews and pop along to the redpillrevolution.com. The book also has links to us discussing everything to do with that chapter. There's sort of free videos that you can access without even buying the book. But anyway, come and drop in and say hello, guys. And thank you so much, Shawn, for having me back on. It's always a pleasure. And I'm always checking out your vids. It's great to see somebody attack this lunacy with such humor and such directness. Thanks a lot, man.
Okay, thanks, guys. I have to go. I'll see you guys back tomorrow. Take care, Phil. Have a great evening. Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you.